In Green Pasture and First Corinthians for coming out to see me in Grace Pasture for having me. I'm truly thank you and just appreciate it. Amen.
Amen.
The theme for Green Pasture today is giving God your best. It comes from Micah chapter 6 verses 8. It says, "He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Now, while I was studying this verse, it made me want to fact check a few things. So I pulled my dictionary out, and I researched what does justly mean. Justly means is in a just manner, or in conformity to law. Justice by right, honestly, being fairly or accurately. Now, after knowing that, I was wondering, what does it mean to act justly? Because the Lord gives the charge to act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with our God. And acting justly means taking action to set things right. It means when you see something that needs change, to do it, to not just walk away and have a blind eye.
Amen.
It can also mean feeding someone who is hungry, being a godly leader. It can even be raising money for a cause, or simply holding someone's hand when they cry.
Amen.
Now, when we get into the verses, not just in verse 8, but chapter 6, verses 1 through 8, during this time, there was a lot of injustice going on in Israel. Now, when we think about acting justly during the times that we're talking about, acting justly would have been understood by Micah's audience as living with the sense of right and wrong.
Right.
During this time, in particular, the judicial courts had a responsibility to provide equity and protect the innocent. Then I went on to research, what does mercy mean? Now, mercy can be translated as compassion and forgiveness.
Well,
To love mercy is to prefer being kind to being correct. Christians are taught it is better to forgive than to avenge them.
all right.
Now, love mercy contains the Hebrew word hesed, which means loyal love or loving kindness.
All right.
Along with justice, Israel was to provide mercy. Both justice and mercy are foundational to God's character. If you read Psalms 89, verse 14, it says, righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne.
All right.
Love and faithfulness go before you. God expected his people to show love to their fellow man and to be loyal in their love toward him, just as he had been loyal to them.
All right.
So first we talked about how to act justly, how to do what's right. Then we talked about love and mercy, which talks about love and compassion. Both of these deal with both of these deal with yourself and how you deal with your neighbor. Anyone ever heard of the phrase love begets love, or sheep begets sheep? Begets means to cause. If you love someone, they will love you back. But we all know just because you love someone doesn't necessarily mean they will love you back.
All right.
What the quote really means is, in order to be loved, you must first be willing to love.
All right.
It's similar to love is a two-way street. You can't expect to be loved if you won't love that person in return.
Come on now.
Now, the third point that talks in the verse is about walking humbly with your God. This is how we give God our best, walking humbly. To walk humbly is a description of the heart's attitude towards God. God's people depend on him rather than their own abilities. Instead of taking pride in what we bring to God, we humbly recognize that no amount of personal sacrifice can replace a heart committed to justice and love. Israel's insincere questions had a three-part progression, and verse 8 contains a similar progression. The response of a godly heart has three things. The response of a godly heart is outward, inward, and upward.
All right.
The response of a godly heart is outward when you do justice. The response of a godly heart is inward when you love mercy.
right.
The response of a godly heart is upward when you walk humbly.
All right.
Now, during the times that we're in now, we deal with a lot of injustice.
All right.
If you watch the NFL, it's a guy named Colin Kaepernick who's fighting the NFL over some injustice.
That's right.
Martin Luther King was big about injustice,
Yeah.
about equality for all. We all want to be treated fair.
That's right.
Now, when you think about the whole scripture, what does it mean to do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly? One of the most popular verses among both Jews and Christians promoting social justice is Micah 6:8.
All right.
Many desire to know about what this inspiring verse teaches on the issues of justice, mercy, and humility. Micah 6 involves an imaginary conversation between the Lord and Israel. In verses 1 through 5, the Lord introduces his case against the disobedient people of Israel. And as we're talking about Israel, it's the same things that we're dealing with on today.
Same thing.
Verses 6 and 7 records Israel's response as a series of questions, beginning with what shall I come to the Lord? This is a question every true believer should have, because we want to please God.
That's right.
But Israel's focus is on the external religious rites, and their questions show progression from lesser to greater. First, they asked if God would be satisfied with burnt offerings of a year-old calves, offerings required in the law of Moses. Second, they asked if they should bring thousands of rams with 10,000s of rivers of oil. Now, this one is accurate, because such an offering can only be made by someone extremely wealthy or by the larger community of God's people.
Well.
Thirdly, they asked whether they should offer their firstborn sons as a sacrifice for God. Would that be enough to cover their sin? Would God be pleased with them then? Verse 8 follows with God's answer, which is also rooted in the law of Moses. He has told you, O man, what is good. In other words, Israel should have already known the answer to their questions.
All right.
God then says he did not need or desire their religious rites or their sacrifices.
Come on now.
Instead, the Lord sought Israel's justice, mercy, and humility.
Yeah.
The same thing he seeks for us now. The answer to Israel's sin and our sin was not merely numerous or more painful sacrifices. The answer was something much deeper than any religious observance. They needed a change of heart. We need a change of heart.
Amen.
Without the heart, Israel's conformity to the law was nothing more than insincerity. The same goes for us. Other prophets tried to communicate a similar message. We have Isaiah, Hosea, and Amos. But unfortunately, God's people were slow to hear the message. The message of Micah is still permanent today. Religious rites, no matter how extravagant, can never compensate for lack of love.
All right.
1 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 3 says, if I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing.
Amen.
External compliance to rules is not as valuable in God's eyes as a humble heart that simply does what is right.
Yeah.
God's people today will continue to desire justice, mercy, and humility before the Lord.
Amen.
The purpose of Micah 6 is to illustrate that Israel and us do not know the only authentic way to come before the Lord, which is total personal conversion.
All right.
Israel, because of its sin, is separated from God and is unable to recognize God's true character. God did not want blood sacrifices. God did not and does not need our material sacrifices, regardless of their extravagance.
That's right.
There is only one sacrifice that the Lord truly desires from us, and that is what the ever popular verse 6 and 8 says. Without understanding the attempted sacrifice